City of Delaware Shade Tree Commission meeting for October 24th, 2017. We'll start with roll call.
Ms. Brewster, Mr. Buck,
Here.
Mr. Carey,
Here.
Mr. Glissman, Ms. Schaefer, here, Mr. Wilbur,
Here.
Ms. Woodmeek,
Here.
Vice Chairwoman Wright,
Here.
Chairman Owen.
Here.
Motion to excuse the absent members.
Seconded. Vote, please.
Mr. Buck,
Yes.
Mr. Carey,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Wilbur,
Yes.
Ms. Woodmeek,
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Wright,
Yes.
Chairman Owen.
Yes. Okay, on to item number 2, approval of the motion summary for the meeting held September 26, 2017, as recorded and transcribed. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Vote, please.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
I did. Second.
Thank you. Mr. Buck,
Yes.
Mr. Carey,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Wilbur,
Yes.
Ms. Woodmeek,
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Wright,
Yes.
Chairman Owen.
Yes. Okay, that takes us to item number 3, public comments. There's no members of the public present tonight. So we'll move on to item number 4, discussion of Chapter 1168 Tree Preservation Regulations of the Planning and Zoning Code. We'll defer to next regular scheduled meeting as staff continues to review for requested input and comments. Anything to add there, Ted?
No, I wanted Dave to get a good look at it, and he's been really busy, so we just wanted to, instead of trying to rush into this thing, look at it next month, and he'll probably be at the next meeting on that, so.
Okay, because then we generally don't meet in December, so
Right.
next month is the last meeting before they vote on it. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, you mean city council?
Yeah, to put it part of make it formally part of the code.
Yeah, and I want to see how Dave wants to do that, whether he wants to make an addenda or, adopt a new code. So I want to see, we kind of want to go through and figure out the best way to make those changes in there.
Okay, so he'll be here also next
Yeah,
meeting.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Ted. Does anybody have any comments on that for tonight that they wanted to bring up before we move on?
Well, I have possibly one comment, and I guess I do have a comment because I'm speaking up now. In conjunction with the discussion about fire station number 4, Ted Miller has been present at those meetings. I made an interesting discovery, and I was going to ask Ted Miller and or David Eflin or whatever for clarification. I'm simply asking for clarification. I was intrigued to learn, so the fire station number 4 is on the corner of Jesiah and Glen. It's zoned A1 currently, which is the default zoning for city property, according to David Eflin. Now, I was surprised to learn that A1 zoning district allows, and I'm quoting, allows for the removal of trees without replacing blah, blah, blah. So I guess in any city-owned area zoned A1, trees can be removed with impunity without having to replace them. I'm not sure if that is in our current tree ordinances anywhere. It might be in there. I've not looked at them, for the past several weeks. But I'm curious about the clarification. Is that true, and where does it say that? And if it is true, if it is stated somewhere, should it be stated? Should there be loopholes? Should there be exceptions to our tree ordinances? And if there's one exception, of course, the chances are there are other exceptions. I'm wondering about that whole situation.
I'll have to get back with you on that. I don't have an answer on that. I'd have to look up A1. I don't have that memorized off the top of my head, so I'll have to get back with you on that.
The only thing that's interesting about that, we've had discussions in the last years. I don't remember when the most recent one was about the city clearing land and not replacing, and that never came up that it's part of the zoning code and they're allowed to do that. I mean, we always talked about the fact that they can do it. Do you remember those times? Yeah.
With the fire station that you're referencing though, the caliper inches are, I think we met those. I think we reviewed that plan last week and I think we were even exceeded what the
Yes.
replacement was on
That
that.
is true, absolutely true. No, I'm not worried about the fire station number 4 per se. I'm curious about the general policy, about other properties. The city owns a lot of property, and I don't know how much is zoned, A1 agricultural. So it's a general question, not specifically referring to the fire station.
So the A stands for agriculture?
Yes.
And it's within a city limit, so we
Yes.
have city land that's primarily zoned for agriculture?
Yes, there are quite a few privately owned or city-owned properties zoned A1. There are all kinds of exceptions. It's a
Well-
very arcane science. David Efron would know. Ordinary mortals, don't have full understanding of such things.
Why would it be zoned for agriculture if they're developing it?
Oh, well, it's probably a legacy zoning.
Exactly.
And
Yes,
I don't
So
think
it's archaic and
regardless
it's-
of, the way I understand it, regardless of the specific zoning, if it's city-owned property, it's not country place. That's how I understand it. And I'm guessing the answer will be something like, well, the city is broadly dedicated to the health of our urban forest, and regardless of letter, the city promotes and puts a lot of money into our urban forest anyway. So you'd essentially just be moving money from column A to column B, which they kind of do anyway. I'm guessing that's the answer. I don't know that's the answer, but that's my guess.
Okay, well,
Yeah, most times when the corporation limits change and a new piece comes in that's not being developed, it's just going to be a vacant land and it's A1 in the township. A lot of times that zoning will just first, so when someone does want to develop that piece, then the zoning is updated at that time. But each case is specific, so it's hard to throw a broad pencil on that. So we just have to look at it, but we'll take a look at that and see what how it applies.
okay. Any other comments before we move on to the arborist report?
I just, for the record, want to state that Mr. Glissman arrived at 7:02. Sorry. Just for the record, you're here.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, then let's move on to item number 5, the arborist report.
Okay, this work was completed in the month of October. We took down 3 large caliper trees, were removed as they were hazardous. 7 smaller caliper trees were removed. Then 3 trees were also removed from Oak Grove Cemetery due to being hazardous trees. We were able to get out and prune 172 street trees for street, sidewalk, and signage clearance. The backlog of trees of 221, I have confirmed with our delivery schedule. We will start to see those trees rolling in here on the 9th and 10th of November, and planting will start the week of the 13th. Everything's been delayed a little bit because of the dry conditions and not able to dig trees. So they are digging now and getting caught back up again. Obviously, we'll continue our pruning project and on a 5-year maintenance plan, and that's all I have for this month.
Any questions for Doug?
I have a general question, Doug.
Yes.
About the black gums and how they're doing. I know we planted a bunch a few years ago and you may have had some trouble, but I haven't been here for a little while, so I don't recall if we're
The
still
black
planting them or
gums?
not. Black gums, nice and sabbatical.
Oh, the black gums. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
That's right.
We've had a mixed bag. For the most part, the trees that we planted, I would say we've probably had about a 50% mortality rate on them between what we've planted and what the contractors have planted. However, I'm almost sure that it's due to environmental conditions, not the way they were planted or whether or not they can survive here. Because the trees that we've replaced, black elm, replaced them again, they're doing well. We didn't lose any last year, and with this last season, at least this year, we haven't lost any from the spring that was planted in the spring by contractors or by us, which I guess really we didn't plant any in the spring. And then the ones that were replaced by the contractors have done well also. I think it's just a matter of when they're planted and how well they're taken care of after they're planted.
Okay. So it's the spring or fall for those?
Spring, I think, seems to be better.
Okay. Thank you. I've been individually promoting them to people who ask me, and I just wanted to make sure I was still doing the right thing.
They're a nice little medium tree, so.
Thank you, Doug.
Any other questions for Doug? Okay, staff comments?
This might be a time that one of the late additions to the packet was the Tree Legacy Program. So right now we've, this isn't a huge issue that we're facing, but we've been getting more and more requests for people that want to dedicate a tree in one of the parks. And we don't really have a policy or standards in place that would, show how we would do that, with what kind of plaque we'd put out there. And my biggest concern with that is trying to make sure we have something that's consistent in place so that we can sustain something over time. A lot of times the individual plaques tend to wear out, maybe 10, 15 years, and they're kind of looking not so good. We have a variety of different ways we've dedicated in the past. So we kind of wanted to present some options, see what appeals to you, see what your thoughts are, and see what things you like, things you don't like. From our standpoint, I'm trying to look for something that is sustainable, that we can, long after I'm gone, it'll still have a record. We can kind of keep going with it and keep it consistent and maintain it. So if there's any comments, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about that. And
I was surprised that there wasn't already policy in place, so that was a surprise.
Like I said, we don't get a ton of requests, but they seem to kind of more and more
Increase, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just really curious on how it works. So if somebody calls you up and says, I want to donate a tree in honor of or in memory of my spouse, whatever. Do you direct them to a site, to a species, to a? Yeah,
Linda usually, she's kind of our policy holder right now. And, she'll talk to Doug and, where we have a need for one. A lot of times they have a specific park in mind that,
Correct.
They want to, place it in. So
You don't try to steer them away from where they think they want it planted? Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, we typically in the parks, we can usually find a place in there, even if you're replacing a tree. But I guess moving forward, we want to have something, even if we create a tree grove or something, but something where we have a plan in place where we continue to add on to it and continue to have a consistent look and just something we can fall back on and give people more of a policy or something that they can see when they want to do something like this.
Mm-hmm. So when I read this, I was a little bit confused about the tree of life thing that you have on page 3, I think.
So the Tree of Life is a kind of an option on its own. It's like when I was at Preservation Parks, we had one of these where it was inside a building, and I know some of them could be outside, but this was inside a building. The nice thing about the Tree of Life is it's donations come in, and there's different levels on there too. But they're used and I don't have a location where we can put this yet. I just kind of wanted to see ideas of what people
Let's
thought.
let's assume you put it in this building somewhere. That would be the logical place to be for me.
If we could find a spot in here.
Right.
Yeah, and that way people can see where it's at, and I think it's long lasting.
Yeah.
And I think that's a crucial element of that needs to be in this policy. The other thing is we present them some options of where that tree could go, like if there's a certain parks that would go in certain areas in the parks. And then that way, at least they can know where that tree was planted. And then we give them a map, and then, but also this leaf. The other thing about this leaf is it's relatively inexpensive to maintain over time, honestly. It's pretty simple, and but it's also, I think, accomplishes what people want. They want that that memorialization of that person or that pet that they come to us about.
So is the Tree of Life, when somebody comes in and wants to do this, do you give them, is the Tree of Life and a certificate and a sign on the tree?
Mm-mm.
Are those, okay.
No, it'd be one or the other.
So the Tree of Life, you would just have this little leaf on a spot here in City Hall, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
and the tree itself would not be marked in any way?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Why would would the tree have to be marked? mean-
Well, what I think is a good idea is to do both.
Mark the tree and the tree.
Yeah.
See, the problem with the tree itself is maintaining those markers
Right.
over time.
Yeah, I can see that.
And one of the things we used at Preservation Parks was the tree hugger, which, to me, that I think is going to be open to vandalism. I don't see those lasting a long time. I mean, the spring allows it to grow with the tree, but to me, I don't know if it's the best option.
Currently, you use something like the ones I've seen on page 2, the top left of sort of.
Yeah, it's like a 4x4 with an angle,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
the one.
put a
that's the one
plaque on
I've
there.
seen.
Was this idea talked about in the Parks and Recreation meeting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I heard a presentation about it yesterday. They were talking about what they
Okay.
should do about it.
Yeah. It's and one of the questions brought up with that was a good question, was what do we do with all the old ones? I mean, we're not going to go out and take the old ones down because that's going to be hard to do. I mean, without it's such a sensitive subject. I think it might offend some people if we take something away. So we don't plan on changing anything in that. But as we move forward, how do we address memorialization or legacy trees?
Yeah.
What policy do we set in place?
So there's plaques out there now on trees.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many?
No, we don't.
Do you know where they're at?
Yeah, we know where most of them are.
Is that from GIS or what?
Nope, they're not in GIS. They're just kind of paper records.
Would that be something you'd be using in the future, GIS? To use
Yeah, I think if nothing else, it'd be. I don't know about GIS right away, but at least if nothing else, it'd be an AutoCAD or some type of coordinate system there.
So, okay.
Would you, if you did the Tree of Life, wouldn't you maybe record the ones that are out there and then they would be a part of this tree? Is that potentially?
We could, because the leaves are not super expensive, but yeah, we could maybe incorporate them into those trees. So especially if one of the 4x4 posts, rotted away or the plaque became unreadable, then maybe at least we could continue it on there. But yeah, that could definitely be an option.
I think an option would be the Tree of Life, which was less expensive. And then if the person really wanted a plaque of some sort on the tree, let them pay for that.
Give them 2 options on that.
Yeah.
And
And then say, if you go with the tree hugger, we'll leave it on there for 5 years or a certain period of time.
When we bring out the policy, that's one thing we will put in there, is that we'll guarantee the tree for like 2 years. Because some of those things are beyond our control, and we don't want to replace a tree that's.
Right.
We're kind of getting into that now with some other areas that, we'll guarantee it for 2 years, and we want to lay all these options out to everyone before they, buy into the program. Is that these are what our standards and what we'll go by, so that we can maintain this program. I mean, that is an option, giving both of those.
Do they have a list of species or varieties to choose from?
Yes.
Okay.
It's basically our parks trees, the
Okay.
ones that are out there now.
So the cost of the tree is 150 to 275. But that doesn't, right now, you have, this has already been going on, so you have trees with plaques on them. So right now, the person that had the tree, they paid for the plaque and put the plaque up.
Yeah, is that right, Linda?
Some of them we paid for, some of them they paid for, depending on the situation.
Yeah, we just,
Well, like when we did the Arbor Day tree for Chuck Rec trip,
Oh,
the city paid for that. Emergency Drain and Plumbing donated a tree for their many years of business in the city of Delaware. They paid for their plaque. We paid what was on it. They gave us a proof and then they paid for that plaque. But Doug puts them in.
one of, kind of what Susan was alluding to was, if we did have them pay for a plaque, we could guarantee that, or we wouldn't guarantee the plaque. So if, vandalism did take place, and that's always a risk that out there, that they would need to replace the plaque if they wanted to. I've seen that in some policies where that was written in there, and at least that takes the burden off of the city.
Have you had vandalism in the kind that I was citing? The 4x4s in the ground, have those been vandalized?
I don't think we've had too much.
Yeah, I think
That
those,
seems like a better way to go.
yeah.
Mhm.
Less
But,
tempting.
but
Yeah.
then you have the
Those that-
maintenance issues, I assume, mowing and,
The one, if we were to do that something on the ground, the bronze cast plaques, I think are durable and they
Yeah.
hold up
They
well.
look well.
okay.
And if we're doing that also, I think one of the things I'd like to do is at least put the name of the tree on there too as part of the,
It should be part of it.
yeah, just so we have that aspect.
Some
in there,
education
too.
that goes along with it.
Right, exactly. So is it safe to say the board's kind of leaning towards the plaques and some, the right in front of the tree?
I like it.
Well, I think it would be hard to say, you're not going to do it anymore since you've already got plenty of trees around town that have them.
Mhm.
But I think there would be nothing wrong to say, if the cost of the program is $150 and then the plaque, whatever one you decide, is an additional $150, and let the person or the group that's donating it pay
Mhm.
that amount. But if they don't want that, then we'll put a tree of life leaf on as part of the 150.
Mhm.
Right.
I personally don't like the tree hugger options at all.
I don't either.
I think
Well,
that sets it- I don't,
Yeah.
that just,
To be honest,
everything
I don't
about
like
it kind of rubs me the wrong way.
I've never
I don't-
seen
I
one.
don't-
What are they made out of?
They're probably springs. But I don't-
Yeah, it's just a spring.
I think
that
it
has,
just
like, a
gives
rubber
people that
sleeve on
idea.
it.
I think it encourages those that are going to vandalize. It tempts them too much.
It just,
I guess one of the things, I'd like to have one policy so that if we're just going to do, because it might be difficult to find a place for this tree of life and have a bunch of empty leaves on it or something. It might take a long time.
Right.
But I guess just one policy would make things a lot simpler for us if we just did the plaque, which I'd be fine with. And then, it gave prices on that plaque, but then also, let them know that if plaque's vandalized or stolen or something, they'd have to replace it. We'd also maybe designate areas where these trees could go. So that, because we can't, I'm fairly positive we can't put them in every park. We can't let people choose whichever park they want. We might give them a choice of parks.
I like the idea of a memorial grove or a memorial forest, and that way, or even a couple, if there's a couple areas that
Yeah.
need to be reforested. So I like the designated area, and, groups of trees do better than single trees anyway. I mean, over the long run, having them in groups.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the same subject. The current thought is to place trees throughout the park district, quote unquote. And maybe that gives people more flexibility. They want to have a memorial park in their neighborhood they can visit. But maybe it makes sense to have a designated area or areas where we focus on. It might be easier to maintain. to supervise for safety reasons, for mowing, etc. It might be easier to have a more compact area or areas, where we know, because right now these things are all over the place and nobody knows how many there are and where they are, and some get lost. And I know from Ohio Wesleyan, where I work, we have a lot of plaques and memorial, rocks and etc. And things get stolen and vandalized. Metal gets stolen for whatever, for money, and so things get lost and forgotten. And it might make sense to have a designated area where all that is located, or maybe a couple areas, or maybe 4 areas, one in each quadrant. I don't know. But to have these things all over the city, helter-skelter, might be a little hard to, logistically hard to keep track of.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having individual trees being plaqued, why don't you just have like one big placard and then add names to it individually? If you do like an area of trees, add a tree for every person, and then add the name of whoever adds to it. So it's gonna be harder to steal a giant thing if it's big in there.
Yeah, and that would be kind of like the tree life outside,
Right.
which is a possibility also. So if we were able to designate a tree grove area, we might be able to do one. And the nice thing about that approach is really easy to add names to it, and it's expandable, and it's that's a really nice feature of that.
Where would that dedicated area be?
I don't know. We propose some areas, and yeah, that'd be the next step of this process. I think is designate those areas.
So Ted, did you want specific recommendations from us tonight, or is this just a preliminary?
I think the feedback I've gotten tonight. Susan, what do you think about one or the other, or are you just still like looking at both of them?
You're talking about the tree of life with
having a choice.
Well, my perception was that maybe it was going to be too expensive to do the plaques for each tree. So you would give someone the option. If you really want a plaque, I'm talking the 4x4 now, then you can pay extra for that. But if you don't want it, here's how you will be memorialized. And that's the tree of life thing. I was just looking for options. You said you only wanted one policy, and I think of it as one policy with a couple different options. That's the difference.
Why don't I run through the plaque options and see what that cost would come out to be? And then I'll look at possibly a comprehensive outdoor or something like that, or something where we could put that. And basically I'll look at some other policies that have been done and kind of go down that road with they've already gone down, and maybe bring that back and see what we think of that and what the costs come back, and if we think that's a good option, or make some adjustments here and there, and also look at some areas that we could possibly have a tree groves, or the memorial groves.
These have become popular in England. The tree grove, memorial groves, memorial forests.
Yeah, I think they're going to be more and more. I mean, Linda, we had 2 requests in like this summer.
I've done 3 this year,
This year.
and that's more than usual.
Yeah, but if you get 2 or 3 a year, over a decade, that adds up to a lot of trees. That's a pretty good sized space of wooded area.
Yeah, and it could easily grow out of control if we didn't have a plan in place, I think.
I think once you have a designated area, if you do it you're going to get more people choosing to go that way too, because more people will realize that
it's a dedicated
there's
space.
a dedicated space, and they'll realize that, oh, that's what that's about.
Mm-hmm.
And more people may choose to memorialize something like that.
I think that's very true. Okay. Well, let me work on this a little bit more, come back with maybe a little bit refined approach to this, and we'll see if that works. But this is something that we're probably going to have to work on a little bit to get to where we want it to be. Thank you.
Thanks, Ted. Okay, let's move on to item 7, member comments. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share? Any board or commission members have anything?
Not tonight.
Wow, this is
I'm
truly a
impressed.
momentous
Impressing
occasion.
myself.
Okay.
Well, I have a question for you, Tom. Do you have any articles from last month with you?
Not with me.
Oh, did you miss all those days?
I missed, yeah.
Oh,
I have a big pile in the office.
I believe I have them in the archives. I scan them usually when you.
Oh, okay.
I can mail it to you or bring it next time.
All right, yeah, that'll work.
I probably have a big stack.
Oh, the one about the
Extension.
scientists, the ash trees are going insane.
Ah.
I mean, that's kind of right up my alley.
On the
so
Gazette,
I'm
yes.
gonna-
Mhm, yes.
I'm gonna
Did you,
read that.
did you
'cause I
hear
did not.
about the washing trees one? Washing trees?
Oh, yeah.
I did, yeah,
That
I
was
remember
pretty good.
hearing about that.
We
Well,
never heard from that guy again. He disappeared. There's a
That's
person
good.
who came to city council promoting his business. He wanted to power wash all the trees, private and public, in the city. It's just an innovative business idea, but of course, total snake oil thinking.
yeah. Okay, so no member comments?
I just have
Oh,
one
go ahead.
a question that's sort of been on my mind. And I would like to get an assessment of our urban tree canopy. And I don't know if there's a place that you can, like,
GIS,
Yeah.
ArcView. or
we know
whatever
about our
G-
street trees, we don't know what our canopy cover is. And I think
Yeah.
that would be,
Yeah, there's a way to do that.
Yeah,
yeah, but
There's an iTree tool. You need a specific kind of input file that one of the GIS folks in the city could get, and you just dump it into iTree. It'll, it
where's
has
the
to be
data
there.
come from though? From the,
Oh, it's a
Satellite.
Google Earth
Okay,
thing.
okay.
It's Google Earth.
yeah,
So
Right.
you're wondering what the percentage is?
yeah,
Is
I
it
want,
80% or 50%? It's actually a rivalry among cities.
yeah.
We have a tree canopy that covers 95% of our city. So I'm curious too, is it 40%? Is it 50%? Is it?
I would like to take it one step further. I mean, I'd like to have the overall number, but I'd like to also look at neighborhoods because I think we have a feeling in our neighborhood that we're very tree covered, but I don't think that it's uniform across the city. So, and I know the newer neighborhoods, you wouldn't expect that, but I'm just really curious.
But
about-
I'm sorry, as a follow-up, we could probably even set a benchmark. If we are, for example, below the national average,
Yeah.
let's say we are at 40%, and the national average is 50, I'm making that up. Maybe we could set a benchmark. We should increase our canopy by 10% within the next 10 years or something like that. I would welcome that. That would fit nicely into our
Yeah.
vision and mission statement.
And one of the first things that I wrote down about when we first started talking about updating Chapter 1168 was how the tree canopy, percent canopy cover has changed since this Oklahoma land rush of development began 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And so it would be nice. I know there's satellite images from that far back, so I think it'd be interesting to see how the canopy has, it's probably shrunk, but I don't know that for sure.
Well, it would be a little bit like comparing apples and oranges because those parts of the city those parts of the current city that no longer have trees were not part of the city when there were trees.
That's right, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Well, if you're
What was
developing
formerly a
agricultural land, you're gonna have more
cornfield
trees.
Well, yeah,
has
but large parts of
more,
it were farmland.
has more canopy cover now. So that'd be interesting to see that if it's easy enough just to get the satellite images and then,
Yeah, let me, I'll send something out to the group on how to make that happen, because I know I looked at it a few months ago, or maybe this spring. Yeah, it had to be this spring.
because as the Shade Tree Commission, we're worried about replacing caliper branches, but we've never addressed, maintaining the percent canopy cover. And that's another measure of the forest. It's not all just
Right, and most of that would be
basal area.
outside of the city staff's purview, but as a commission, it's certainly within our purview to promote and educate and say, hey, this is where we're at. I have an anecdote that's right up this line. Charlie and Leela a couple of scientists up at the station are working with the city of Columbus on exactly this question. The city of Columbus is, I'm trying to remember, in the 20s for canopy cover,
That's
and the expectation, I think, is something like the 40s, around
That was in the
40%.
30s.
They were in the 30s, but they
No,
should.
no, but that's the average.
Oh, maybe,
Cincinnati
but
is
their target is some, 40 isn't an unreasonable expectation, I think, is what I was told. So, anyway, so they're working on
Cincinnati's
that. So
43%.
Current, that's current.
Yeah, the Cincinnati region is privileged to have a robust urban forest. Our tree canopy of 43% and upwards of 50%, 43 to 50% in Cincinnati. Just,
So, anyway.
so
yeah,
Columbus
getting
is 20.
In the 20s is what I remember. Don't quote me, but that's what I remember from the conversation.
Well, that's a worthwhile project. Okay, any other member comments? Okay, then it's time for plan reviews.
Doug, which one do you have first? Okay. Lidle?
You pronounce it Lidl, but, maybe we will pronounce it Lidl in America, I don't know. Oh. Actually, yeah, I can do that for a while, yeah. Oh, no, well, I think, but the general keeps you just to look at that. Yeah, I have, that. That's beautiful size, yeah. Another life, I could go to another few minutes.
Okay, this is the grocery store that they're planning on building at the corner of Sunbury Road and Middle Crossing. It's currently where Delaware Marine is at.
So that needs to be demolished,
That would
right?
all be demolished.
Okay, yeah. I was wondering about that.
This is their final plan for approval.
It's over here.
This is the shop.
Shopping,
center.
okay.
Yeah. There are only 2 trees that are in the right of way that we have any say over, and both of them are going to be American hornbeams. I did not see anything on the list that they had that was offensive or would not do well, except for probably the Bermuda grass probably will not do well here. And I don't know if that's a typo from where they put all their, what they put on all their other stores.
They started on the, north of South Carolina and Virginia, and the grass might do well there, but not here. I've not looked at the property in a while, so currently, I don't think there are any trees there, except those at that's
The back of the
that's
fence,
the south end,
yeah.
yes. So they will stay here, right?
They're all.
Because that's where the pond is and wetlands and creek, et cetera, so, all right. So no trees have to go, no trees will not be.
There are a few dead trees that they're going to get.
Okay, yeah, I need to look at that, yeah, but that's fine. It's certainly not a wooded area right now, so as far as I know.
There was a tree count done, and
I think there might be some trees at the edge here.
yeah, there was a tree count done, and it was accurate.
Okay, that's fine.
Is the Delaware Marine still in business or have they already shut down the doors?
There's still boats there.
Okay.
Well, this is just another phase of Heatherton. Currently, they are building on Braxton Street in the neighborhood. They do have, this home is completed, or it is completed. So they're getting ready to start opening up the next areas.
Where's Hulk?
Hauk is over this way.
Okay, all right, yeah, okay, something else.
So we currently have Ginkgo's coming around the corner here, so that's just carrying out that. And then Silver Lindens and Pacific or Norwegian Sunset Maples on Burgoyne Street. Total of 40 trees.
There's a wooded area in the south. How close are we to that? Have we reached it yet?
Well, that's actually, there's going to be another whole
Okay.
condo,
Yeah.
or duplexes or patio home area down there. And then the next section is a wooded area that's owned by the city,
Yes.
across from the line.
I hope that will remain untouched, but we'll see. I think they're gonna chop off the northern end to build a street or something, you know?
Maybe.
Yeah, I hope not. I hope they'll leave it intact for the most part.
It's a nice woods.
Yes. Lots of nice mature trees.
It's very clean woods when you go inside, and not very much brush and
Yes.
very
Yeah.
dry.
Yeah, I don't see any problem.
All the species.
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yep. Sir.
Okay.
That has-
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, motion to adjourn
Everybody.
tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. We are adjourned.
Okay, I think that
I know.